You are listening to Proof Text, a Glossa House podcast by Dr. T. Michael W. Halcomb, Dr. Frederick J. Long, Dr. Mario Melendez, Dr. Jennifer Noonan, and J. M. Smith. Welcome and enjoy.
Hello and welcome to Proof Text. I am Michael Halcomb, and in this episode we are thinking about how to grow our vocabulary, and in particular we're thinking about the Hebrew language. And so this is a Growcabulary episode. Now, the Hebrew term that we're looking at today is, well, it reminds me of Yahtzee. We'll talk about that later, but so the letters that we're thinking about are Yod, Tzadeh, and Aleph. Yod, Tzadeh, Aleph. So we're going to look at a couple of different things. If you've been watching, you know that we often look at two-letter lookup when we do this, as well as stepbible.org. And if you're watching, then great. You'll be able to see those. If you're just listening, that's fine too. So that's what we're going to go to first, is stepbible.org. You can type in stepbible.com, by the way, and it'll come right up. But I just go to stepbible.org. So I'll switch my keyboard over to Hebrew here and see what we get. So there we go. We got Yud, and then let's see, Tzadeh, and then Aleph. So there we go. Yahtzee. Yahtzee. All right. So you can see, if you're watching here, that Yahtzee pops up, and it occurs almost 1,100 times in the Old Testament, and it has typically the meaning to come or to come out. So click this here, and our first occurrence of this appears in Genesis 1 to 12. So we got Yahtzee, however you want to pronounce that, depending on the Aleph at the end and the vowel right before it. So Yahtzee. Yahtzee. Now, a lot of people will have that Aleph silent, so they do something like Yahtzee or Yahtzee. We'll look at another example, Tutzea, Tutz, and then we get Yotzea, Yotz. And you can see this Aleph is interesting. Here we have, even at Genesis 8:16, Tzea, or just Tze, depending on how you do that with your pronunciation. Hotzea or Hotz. So very interesting when we look at this. We see that depending on the verb stem, it can have different nuances of coming and or coming out toward, going forth, that sort of thing. In the call, it can have the purpose or resultative sense. In the hifil, the causative sense. In the hofal, the sort of passive sense, to be brought forth. In the hifil, to cause to go out, and so on and so forth. Let's look over at two-letter lookup and see what we get there. So we'll do the Yod and Tzadeh, and there you go, Yahtzee, the same thing. We get the same information, and I just like introducing you to this source. We got the full lexical entry here. We can look at Gesenius, or Jastrow. We can see all the occurrences in the Bible, or different sections of the Old Testament. So that's interesting. I'll come back to Gesenius or Jastrow in a second. Let's click this. If we click all Old Testament, boom, it goes right to Step Bible, because that's where it's at. And unfortunately, the search didn't yield any results. That's because the text was set up to ESV for some reason. So go back to stepbible.org. By the way, you see we have different forms while we're here. Yahtzee, Yahtzav, and that's a little bit different. So to place or to station, whereas Yahtzee and Yahtzee both have the idea of going, bringing, coming, that sort of thing. If we click on the Gesenius link here, you'll see that the Hebrew Chaldee lexicon will come up, and then we can actually look at that. But we'll get a little bit of a different look at things here. So yeah, this is pretty cool. Now, the mnemonic device, I mentioned Yahtzee earlier, and that's sort of the way that I think of this. This term Yahtzee. When you're playing Yahtzee, right, you have the die or the dice in the cup, and you shake it up, and you roll them, and they come out, right? And so if you get a certain kind of roll, you yell Yahtzee, right? But that idea of coming out, the dice coming out of the barrel or the cup, Yahtzee, Yahtzee is how I remember this. So that's my mnemonic device, my mnemonic tip for you. And that's our Hebrew vocabulary term for the week. I hope that helps.
Interested in growing your ancient language skills but not sure where to start? Glosshouse can help. From illustrated readers and short stories to lexicons and grammars, Glosshouse offers a variety of resources for beginning, intermediate, and experienced ancient language learners. Head to glosshouse.com today. Glosshouse, language resources for the global community.